In this session, we will focus on what is microfinance, what is the difference between microfinance and a donation, and finally, why Microfinance Australia prefers providing finance rather than donations. In part 1, we will discuss what microfinance is. Microfinance simply means that monies are provided in the form of a loan in order to help people establish a new or existing small business. The idea is that this small business will then provide the business owner with an ongoing income as well as ownership. In part 2, we will discuss the differences between microfinance and a donation. Traditionally, charities in the past have always provided funding via donations to people in developing countries in order to provide a better living standard. It is the belief of Microfinance Australia that this option is simply a band-aid solution and does not really address the issue of poverty over the long term. For example, Africa has received over $1 trillion in foreign aid over the last 10 years, yet it is still the poorest continent on this earth. Why is this so? If you look at the worksheets for this training session, you will see a table showing you the difference between microfinance and a donation. The first row points out that microfinance is simply a loan issued to a small business, whilst a donation is a gift given to an individual. The next row explains that because funds are issued to you as a loan, there is an expectation of you having to repay that loan. Whereas with a donation, there is no obligation to make any repayments. The next row explains that if the funds are provided as a loan, then there is an expectation of you having to repay the loan. The owner is therefore obligated to generate an income so that they can do so. This can usually only be done by creating a business of some sort. With regards to a donation, however, there is no need to do anything since there's nothing to repay. The next row points out that having established a business, the new business owner now has an income, which in turn gives them an improved lifestyle. Under the donation model, the beneficiary usually uses the money for personal consumption until the funds are exhausted. The next row points out that under the microfinance option, the business owner ends up with owning their own business after having repaid their loan. Whereas with the donation, after the funds have been consumed, there is no ongoing income or ownership. That is, the donation model has provided only a short-term fix. Clearly, the microfinance model is superior as it provides both an ongoing income as well as ownership. The last row, however, illustrates that there is, however, a drawback if the loans are not repaid or payments are made slowly. The result is that the business owner gets a bad credit rating and a poor reputation, which will result in their future and business being destroyed. Under the donation model, this of course is not a problem, as there is no expectation of a return of funds. In the last part of this session, we want to discuss why not simply give a donation instead of a loan. We often get asked by people, why don't we simply provide people with a donation instead of microfinance? The reason we don't do this is because it is Microfinance Australia's belief that ongoing funding via donations is the single largest factor contributing towards poverty. As mentioned earlier, donations typically get consumed, and hence people start becoming dependent on further contributions in the future to maintain their lifestyles. Hence they become dependent on the donor rather than being self-empowered. Hence the poverty cycle continues, and if anything, becomes even worse. The second reason for issuing the funds as a loan is that upon receipt of the loan repayments, Microfinance Australia can use these funds again to help the next potential business owner. Hence, the same funds are used again to help more and more people. This concludes the session on what is microfinance.